welcome back to Brothers of the Half Circle, the podcast. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, this is also the video version of our podcast. What's going on? I'm with Christian over here. We got Joseph over here, and I'm Sean. Thanks for joining us once again. And also, really quick, a shout out to Sharpened Studios for letting us use this wonderful studio space that you find us in here tonight. Man, if you are a content creator out there and you are interested in doing what we do, or making other long form video format videos and stuff like that, please look up Sharpened Iron Studios. They're a phenomenal place. You can record your videos here. You can use this space, all that cool stuff. The link will be in the description. And if you're worried about not having the right equipment, we also rent out the equipment for you. That's true. So this is the bomb. Honestly, I should have Christian give this ad every time because he actually works here. So welcome back to episode 4. How's everybody doing? Glad you guys are here.
Good.
Episode 4 is a bit of a different. We're going to take a shift from some of the nerd stuff that we've been talking about and get into some more, I would say, current event topics. So this is kind of like our first one, and this is going to be a bit of more of a discussion type situation. We're just going to dive right into what we're talking about. And what we're actually talking about tonight is we're going to be talking about the current writer's strike that's happening in Hollywood and entertainment right now, which is kind of crazy. If you're not up to date on the writer's strike, it started at exactly 12:01 May 2nd. And it's been going on since then. And basically, if you're unfamiliar with the writer's strike, essentially there are what we call guilds around here. So much like basically unions, would you say, Joseph, and stuff like that. So and Joseph is interested in, he's trying to get into a union for, what is yours related to, I guess?
484 is like the local one here.
Nice.
And so try and get on that.
Yes, so Joseph is a filmmaker himself. He goes around. He's always doing really cool shoots. And then Christian works here at the studio. And so I wanted to get their perspective on this writer's strike and just kind of what it's all about. So if you're unfamiliar with it and kind of wanting to get caught up to date on what is going on. So basically what's happening right now is, as I think we're all very clear, is that streaming has entered the group chat. Like, streaming is here. It's not your normal broadcasted television shows anymore, where we would get 22 episode seasons and stuff like that we would have on network television. And so basically what's happening right now is you've got the writers are striking against basically all the major studios. So Sony, Paramount, all of those people that distribute all of the great content that we watch on a regular basis. There are people who behind the scenes have to write the great content that we watch. And streaming has really kind of made things a little bit concerned for writers, because writers right now, their conditions are not great. They are writing in some terrible situations. Some of them are living in really crazy situations. I'll tell a story about that a little later on. But basically what's happening is the studios are trying to they want these writers to work for less money, less hours, but keep the same great quality content that they keep dishing out for them. And it's just not right. It's just not a fun thing that I think is happening right now. And I think that it's something that as a podcast, as moviegoers, as people who watch television, we should do our due diligence to get educated on these things. And so, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is just what's going on, what's happening in this writer's strike. So basically what's happening, I want to kind of jump into this right now to lay basically the sidelines of just who's on what side of the picket fence right now. So you've got the writers. The writers, like I said, they're doing the groundwork for all of us. Like, they're giving us the Marvel content. They're giving us the DC content. Anything that's entertainment, anything that we're watching, they're giving it to us. They're working long hours. They're doing rewrites. They're doing changes, last-minute changes. I actually saw a video, I think a couple of weeks ago, that talked about the writer's strike, and they listed off some movies that, from our perception, would come off as being bad. Mm-hmm. They actually came out during the time of the writer's strike, so it makes sense. It makes sense, why it wasn't so good. And so you've got all the writers, they're looking for basically a way to, they want to work basically normal hours, essentially. Like, they want to be kind of employed basically by a studio to like, hey, this is the day rate, my hourly rate, all that stuff. Like, I want to work this. I want to be confident in it. I want to stick here. They're also worried about AI. Chat GPT, all of that stuff is out there. They're worried about that. And they are really wanting to figure out, how can we figure out this relationship between streaming? Since everybody seems to be going that format, everyone seems to be getting a platform, which means, I think my wife and I, we started watching Love and Death, the new show on HBO Max. It's 4 episodes long. Like, it's 4 episodes. It's a 4-episode. Now, granted, it's based on a true story that happened here in Texas, but I was surprised at how long the episodes were. And when I looked up the episode count, it's only 4 episodes. And so, yeah, so the writers are trying to figure out, like, how can we best balance this right now? How we want to get paid what we're worth and stuff like that. So I want to shoot it to you, Joseph, like, from your standpoint, like, what do you feel about the writers as someone who is working in film, someone who's been on sets and stuff like that? Like, what do you feel?
Yeah, okay, so I want to point out, if you're like an indie film watcher, you won't notice much of an effect, because indie filmmakers, independent, usually non-union related, and so they're going to be writing their content and trying to make a movie and put it out, and it's going to be, hopefully, however it's going to be good. The kind of movies that will see like effects are these movies that are slated to come out at a certain date, and no story's written, and they're having to work on those. And so I want to clarify, like, that's the kind of stuff that, you have that whole Phase 5 lineup in Marvel, that's going to be fully affected by this. You have, I assume these movies will be done, but like so many movies lined up that are going to be bad, probably because we don't have writers working on them. And so how do they do that? They're still slated to come out that day. They could push it back, or they could do something like this, and maybe Chat BT, whatever, could be a part of like writing some of these movies that we watch now. Or it might be sent through like text messages. Okay, I have a quick story to tell. I was working on this movie here, local Panhandle, and I heard somebody talking about this movie called Wolverine Origins. It's an X-Men movie, and I was like, one of my favorite things to talk about that movie is that movie sucks. That stinks, and I always talk so much crap on that movie. And so I heard somebody talking about it, just going about, I was a PA on the shoot, and I heard somebody talking, about it, and I was like, oh, here's my opportunity to tell them what I think about this movie, because most people agree with me, like, this movie stinks. And I brought it up. I was like, dude, yeah, that movie's awful and all this stuff. And the director and the gaffer and maybe some other people were like, talking, listening to me, let me do my spiel. And so I just ranted for about, 3 minutes about like things they did wrong and stuff. And then one of the guys was like, yeah, I worked on that movie. I was a gaffer. I was like, oh, the lighting was good and all this stuff. That's what the gaffers do. And I was like, it looked good, but like the story stunk, was my issue. And he told me that was actually written during the writer's strike of 2007 and 2008 while they're filming. Yeah. They're having to put out this movie, and they wrote it through text messages. And so didn't know what they're going to be filming, and they'd be sending it daily. Here's what we need. Here's what we're going to shoot, all that kind of stuff. And so if you look at that movie through that perspective, I'm like, how it was written, well done, but like that's a movie that should have been good, and it was bad, And so I've learned a few things. Don't talk crap about a movie because you never know who worked on it. And then just stuff like how the writer's strike would affect stuff, and how important writers are. Like, I don't have that talent to write something for like a sitcom or anything that's coming out weekly. They're always having people working on these things, and it's just amazing that they're able to put out something that I find entertaining and good in a matter of like a few days. The some of those scripts, like Rocky, we know are famous, it was written in like a few days. I don't remember the exact count. Home Alone was written in a few days. Like, you have these writers, and so like the unions or the films will kind of treat them abusingly as like, well, it only took you like 2 days to write this movie, and like they need compensation better than just because of how good you are, just because like it's like that. I can draw an awesome painting, but it took me a lot of years to get that good.
Yeah.
And so we need to like say, okay, value them for what they do and stuff. And like with inflation, stuff is getting harder. And so there needs to be a new establishment of what they can be paid and stuff for what they do.
It's good. Yeah. What do you think, Christian?
Yeah. First of all, my thoughts are my own, not sharpened iron. Just got to make sure I clear that. But yeah, from what I've heard, they're like, especially on pay, that they're only like, directors and even more like the people, like the studios, they're making millions of dollars off these movies.
Yeah.
And the writers, get paid 30, 40, 50,000 at most.
Yeah.
Like, they're not for writing, even like really for writing good movies that do make those billions of dollars, millions of dollars, it's for them to only be paid so little.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't right. One thing I will say though is I'm sure there are now writers not who aren't participating in the strike, like newer writers, and so that it does open the gate for some of those people.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or not, that's up for you guys to decide. But it's just one of those of, there's probably people trying to break into the industry as a writer, and now they're taking advantage of it. And again, it's one of those, are you willing to work for that little of money? And there's probably some who are trying to break into the business that are. But I do believe that they should be paid more, even the current writers, because you've got, it's not just movies, it's and TV shows, but even like talk shows, like Jimmy Fallon and all those guys are now having to come up with stuff on their own versus having writers that help them.
Well, what's crazy is even like you mentioned, like Jimmy Fallon, those guys, as soon as the strike happened, like all of their shows went straight into reruns. Like they're just showing reruns and stuff like that. But I think you're right. Like it is an opportunity for, whether it's right or wrong, obviously there is that room now for someone who wants to break into the industry to take that opportunity. Whereas I agree with you, Christian. I do think that these people need to be paid. We're getting, like Joseph said, like, here you are talking crap on, X-Men Origins Wolverine, not knowing that there was a gaffer who worked on it. Like, just imagine had that been one of the writers who was sending one of those text messages, And so it's a very I don't know, it's a very interesting thing to think about, because I view it as, this is something to put this podcast on. Like, it takes all of us in this room to do it. Like, it's a team effort, And so to make a movie, it's a team effort. You got to have someone who writes it. You got to have someone who directs it, someone who shoots it, someone who produces it. Like, the lighting, the gaffers, all that stuff. Like, it's a team effort to make it look cool whenever Chris Evans picks up Thor's hammer. Like, there's work that goes into that,
Yeah, I watched a video the other day of, it showed, basically it showed an editing process of Top Gun.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was the new Top Gun Maverick. And it showed, basically there were 42 video and audio channels that were going total. And part of it was they had sections for the visual effects to drop their file in video into the main timeline, but then also they had ones that just had the notes. So you had your editor, you had your VFX, and they're all like, okay, here's the notes of putting this in. Here's going out to now the editor's looking at it. Now we're going back to the audio technician, and they're, you know, all basically working together. It was in Avid Media Composer, and they were all basically. It was like a 20+ minute video that showed how they were doing it, what they were doing. It was really cool to see that type of collaboration, and it just makes you think that's all in post.
Yeah.
So what else are you gonna have to collaborate during the actual, you know, production of it, pre-production, during production, and I do also want to talk a little bit about the Chat GPT, because I have seen that in action where, and not just Chat GPT, but even Google has an AI now called Bard that does sort of similar things. I've kind of compared the two, and Chat GPT will literally write you out the whole script. I've seen where we've actually filmed just small commercials and things like that, and I've seen some of the clients actually bring their own script from that.
Wow.
Saying, oh, hey, here's my idea. And that doesn't always, you know, that doesn't always match up with the director in terms of when they're wanting to, what they're wanting to film. And I've noticed Bard, which is Google's, it gives you more of an outline. Instead of writing like, you know, a 20-page script for you, it'll tell you, here's a shot, here's a shot, here's a shot, and kind of give you. So AI is useful, and even for someone who, like, I'm not a writer either, but it can give you a good outline of your shots, a good outline of what you need to look at, to where, okay, I've written out, I've got my general story of what I want to do, but how do I take that and improve upon it? And so the AI can do that. But I've noticed AI doesn't handle emotion very well. Yeah. So when you're trying to get those emotional moments, like Iron Man dying and, you know, things like that, where that's just gonna, you know, all the romantic movies and things like that, it's looking more like a formula versus, oh, hey, how is the audience going to react? Yeah. And how do we get those emotions from them? Yeah.
Pacing.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. The crazy thing about it too is it's like, I see with the invention of AI, I see it being it needs to be an asset, not something that completely replaces someone's entire role or profession. Mm-hmm. And like, just to go through like some of the things that, you know, the writers are wanting. This comes from Deadline, and basically what they're saying is like, in its strike declaration, the guild was more explicit, asserting that the AMPTP is essentially out to create a gig economy workout of once was a full-time career. So basically it's like the studios are wanting to make writing just basically like if you were a garage band, shout out to garage bands, like not talking down on you guys, but they're basically wanting to make it to where, you know, if you were a writer, it's just a gig thing. You just do it as
more of a freelance type.
Yeah, like a freelance type thing.
You signed on for 5 days or signed on for, you know, a month, and but it's not like you're employed and consistently getting something. You have to go out and fight for it.
Exactly, yeah. And the writers are like, no, we want the opposite. Like, we want to be employed, like, to give great content, basically, you know.
I think a good example is, at least I don't think they're on strike, but WWE.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they've got great writers that are writing the story, and while certain higher ups can go and override certain things, that's when it doesn't always, which is a good example of a writer versus, say, the director or you know, even the studio coming in and thinking, well, what do I want versus what is actually part of the story. And like I said, right now I think WWE stories are I'm believing the writers are still there because their stories are still consistent.
So what do you guys think is like, do you see a compromise in this? Like, is there any way for the, I feel like through the mind of in the mind of the studio, like they just see the dollar signs. Like they're seeing that, you know, The Last of Us was a hit. They're seeing that, you know, Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, you know, that was a hit. They're seeing that, oh, these Marvel movies and Star Wars and, you know, John Wick, all of that stuff, like these are hits. You know, we can basically pay anybody to write John Wick Chapter 5, or we can pay anybody to write, you know, Guardians 4 if there's ever one, you know what I mean? And so, but for the writers, like you said, Christian, there's emotion that goes into a great script.
Yeah, I actually read a story, not necessarily about writing, but it was about photography.
Oh.
And there was one photography event where someone entered an AI photo and didn't say it was AI, and it actually won.
Oh, I've heard that story. Yep.
So they came up with a new competition that actually you can either put in AI or put in your like an actual photo, and that one where AI was allowed, a person actually won it, and it's because the AI photos weren't capturing emotion on camera, you know, on basically being created, whereas the person who actually won it, the way he took the photo, the way he lit it, the way you could tell there was feeling in it, there was passion in it.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those of when you're actually AI can make things look good, can make things sound good, can make it but when you're actively planning, okay, I need to improve my skills and I need to show the difference between what artificial intelligence can do and what a person can do.
Yeah.
That's when you get that true emotion. And I think it's one of those of, I think writers who are worried about AI, it'll teach them to step up. And if the shows are using AI right now while the writers are on strike, you can see like, hey,
there's going to be a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And it right now they're not doing well versus when you go to, you know, when you have the writers and the collaboration and, you know, people can bounce ideas off.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
You know, if I'm saying, hey, we should make a movie about, you know, they should do a new Guardians with, you know, these other characters. And, you know, that's when someone else can say, well, what about this? How about this? What do you think about this? And I've used AI for outlines of small commercials where like not ones that are going out like on TV, but kind of just personal stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always get things right. Like there's moments where I've said, hey, give me, you know, an outline of a certain product, and there's multiple lines that are that they don't actually the product doesn't actually do, whether it be a camera or something else. And so that's when you have to take that and you edit it yourself and put your own, and that's where you can collaborate with other people. But if you are doing things solo, if you are or only working with one other person, or, you know, it's a very small gig, you can use AI as a, you know, to fill in the gaps, to springboard, especially if you're, you know, a lot of people get writer's block where they're like, I can't figure out this idea. That's when you can put it in an AI and then take that and say, okay, this is what it's saying we should do. I'm trying to figure out something to do. Maybe I can take that and add on to it and put my spin on it. So I think that AI can be used as a helpful tool, but it shouldn't be used solo or to replace a person.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Joseph? Anything that you can see a compromise on between the two? Or
I feel like the AI side, like that's an argument of like morals and stuff like that. Oh, we don't want to take away people's jobs and stuff like that. And so, I mean, the unions are there to protect jobs and help working environments be good and stuff like that. But I don't know. Like, I'm torn between it and the idea of like just hearing more and more about the AI side. I don't want to focus too much on it, but it's like what I heard with grocery stores, creating self-checkout, people lose jobs through that and stuff, and it hurts the economy, and there's so many odd jobs that you can do. And maybe it pushes for that, but like I just don't see, like, I need to be mindful of this, that AI could take over writing jobs and stuff like that. But I stand by the idea of like, okay, morals seem right to keep people having those jobs, but like Christians bringing up ideas of when people use AI and how to use it, and would that be okay? And I'm like, coming up with names on scripts, like throw up, would that be cool? When do we blur the line to be okay with okay? And so we keep blurring it more and more and more. Eventually it will become primarily probably AI focused and stuff. And so it's like, do we want to stop this now and make some sort of rule? Is that wrong to make like a rule where you can't use it? And so it just creates this, like, where do we stand, and stuff. And I think I always make the argument of there's always a balance, And so it's like, find that balance, but like, what is the balance, and how do we establish that and stuff?
You've seen with, I like how you brought up grocery stores initially, and I mean even restaurants like McDonald's and things like that, where when you go in and you're having to use the kiosk or the self-checkout, there's a lot of ways that they can be manipulated. There's a lot of ways that they've had to implement new rules. Like, I mean, you go to Walmart and if you've used the self-checkout, basically they check your receipt now. There's the people who are scanning one item in place of another. And now they've got cameras, they've got weight, to weight certain items. So they've had to add more and more and more because a machine couldn't, do it. And especially, I mean, I've even gone to a restaurant where, you ordered through the kiosk or you ordered through DoorDash or something like that. And it's one of those of certain customizations, certain things that you may want to make with your meal, the machine can't do. It has to be programmed a certain way. And I think that's going to be an issue that will come up with AI is there's going to be the people that manipulate it. There's going to be people that will take advantage of certain features. And I mean, it's just one of those of where's the line between when do we need to go back to an actual person? And I'll bring up one more thing for AI, and then we can switch to. But it actually it does pertain to the writers, because if like right now there's the question of if an AI creates something, can it be trademarked or copyright?
That's one of the things that the writers are worried about is like, if they're not using me and they use a machine, but then they call me to be like, hey, can you make some adjustments on this? Like, basically the writers are saying AI should not be used as literary work. Like, it cannot be entered into as as a tool. And,
so can you copyright something that, like, it is ChatGPT gonna technically own a script if it's most of it? Say they write an episode of The Flash, or say The Flash or yeah, I know. But you know, things like that where if they write a whole TV episode or write a movie using it, does it, you know, especially if there's original characters in it.
Yeah.
Now, can you trademark those because it wasn't you writing it, it wasn't your ideas, it was the machine, and anyone could go into that machine and type in the exact same thing you did, and it pull up the same script, and will that, you know, ruin a lot, like spoil a lot of movies if say you know, they go and, you know, the next Star Wars or Fast and Furious or something like that, John Wick, if they go and use AI to write the script, what's going to keep, you know, one of us from going into ChatGPT and saying, hey, write me a script for, you know, John Wick 5.
Yeah.
And it may actually come up with, depending on your wording, the exact same thing that they were writing.
It kind of reminds me of, like, you guys remember the year, like, whenever, like Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down came out at the same year, only a couple months apart, but were literally the exact same, like, premise and movie, like, literally the exact same thing. That's kind of where I see that going too. Is it's like, okay, if Joseph has an idea and you have an idea, and you type the same sentence, you get the same script, and then you just name your movies differently or whatever,
and just name the characters different.
Yeah, it's like, this is the same film, you know.
Or you see those B-listed films that kind of like jump in and attack like the movie and give it the exact same title and come out like a day before or 2 months before, only online, and you can watch it. And so, like, because that title is hot that people might be searching for, it can come up and then they can make money off of it. It's kind of what they try to do. And so it's like, you made me think about, like, is there an original idea? Like, we're talking about even movies today where they kind of are similar. You know, it's hard to come up with like a fully original idea. And so that's the same ideas, like these AIs, I think, are pulling from sources and stuff to come up with, like, okay, here's what's structured this, and they want something like that, so let me pull from that. Or they want this, and so they pull from things. And so sometimes writers have to do that. Like, they even pull from, okay, make a story about World War II, and they're like, okay, I don't know, so I'm going to have to research and learn and stuff like that. And so it's that argument too, but like, I think, like, okay, we're struggling with original movies, you know, and we probably will always struggle with that idea of, like, this thing's so original, it can't be compared to anything else. Like, everything's easily compared to something else now. So,
but I think, like, that's why the writers being on strike is so important, and why they want the longevity as a profession and job, is because once you have that original idea, like that sweet spot of a film or a book or a song, and you know how, like, legendary it's gonna be, like, there's nothing that can ever repeat that feeling. Like, if, like, up on our YouTube channel tomorrow, which when we record this podcast and it comes out, it'll be in the past saying this. So I'll say tomorrow right now, but what I mean by tomorrow is, I mean Tuesday, May 16th. You can go, there's a video going up on our channel called, you know, how long should a movie studio wait before making a sequel? And sometimes one of the points that I drive home in that video is, sometimes a sequel is not necessary. Like, and that kind of leads into, you know, another episode we have coming up talking about, like, you know, franchises and stuff like that. Like, when you have that original idea, and that's what these writers are wanting to basically protect, is like, this job, to a lot of them, they didn't just get into it just because they, you know, wanted to put some words on paper for the rest of their lives. They got into it because they have a heart for it. They have a passion for it. Like, they feel like they're in love with film, or they're in love with television, or they're in love with just, like, creating this content. And I feel like the studios have gotten, like, way ahead of themselves and have only seen like I mentioned, they've only seen the dollar signs. They've only seen that like, oh, well, we should make 6 more Jurassic Parks and we should make, 1,000 more Fast and Furious movies. Like people go to the movies for that. Like that's what they want. Or, oh, this was a really great hit of a show. Like it'll be great for our streaming platform, but let's just only do like 12 episodes or let's do, 4 episodes, stuff like that. Like it's strange because like, we're products of the 90s. And so for us, sitting at home watching television was like king. Like it was sacred.
Well, families got together and such, and you even had like some of the best shows at the time, or the best shows that I believe came out around that time.
Yeah, like there was no. You couldn't record it. You couldn't, or well, you could record it, but you couldn't like DVR it. You had to record it to a VHS tape. If you missed an episode, you missed an episode. But there was quality writing in those episodes and the duration over time. I mean, you're talking about shows that got multiple seasons and multiple episodes, and sometimes they got even a TV movie, every once in a while and stuff like that. Like, and to me, I'm just like, I don't know why streaming can't be the same way. Like, I necessarily wouldn't be mad if we got 22 episodes of The Mandalorian to tell a legit story and not feel like, man, we got to kick things up for episode 3 now because episode 2 sucked, like we got to ramp it up. Like the energy's got to be there. Like it's weird. It's like, to me, I'm just like, I don't know why the same practices from television wouldn't just be applied to streaming. Like, yes, I know you don't have commercials, so you're not having to, weave things in and out, in a 30-minute episode, but you do have the ability to really, I think, tell a great story, like, over time. And I think that's what you saw with shows that had 22, 23 episodes versus shows that had, 10 to 12 episodes. Like it rushes things. It makes things feel empty, almost.
Yeah. When you do have the time to make good thing, something great, that is when, how long did it take for the Flash? And I mean, we'll see it, but how good it is, but they're talking, there's already people saying it's one of the best superhero movies that'll come out, and it got announced 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So and then, like I said, with I would say wrestling, they tell great stories. I mean, you look at the story, Roman Reigns' whole and the Bloodline.
Yeah.
That's gone on for what, 2 years, 3
just
years
about,
now? Like,
just about.
It's it's been going on for so long that you're just like, there's never been a time where it just felt flat.
Yeah.
You had first the Roman Reigns going against the Usos, then them joining, and then you had Sami Zayn pop in.
Yeah.
And he just took it even to the next level.
Yeah.
But that's just one of those where when you have a good writer, when you have people who can take that writing and expand upon it, that's when you get the magic that happens. And I think that one thing that AI and may help would be the like YouTubers. There's plenty of YouTubers that do short films, that do skits, and there's some that are trying to break into doing that. And I think AI can help in the initial step of, okay, how can I write this in this format? What are some good ideas that, someone may not be great at writing, but they take those ideas and then learn how to better it based on what they've seen. And it's just one of those where I think they can really benefit, and, and then even take it from, say, YouTube to film or to somewhere else.
It's good.
That's kind of my idea on that. Like I said, it is a shame that the writers do have to strike, and just to get those their benefits and everything. But like I said, it does open the door for new writers to come in and prove themselves. And whether or not they decide to use AI, or whether they, decide are able to write without it, it's one of those of, at some point, the current writers are going to have to, if all their spots are being filled up with new people coming in, now they'll have to go back and try to prove themselves over the new people coming in. So, it's, like I said, I do think they need more money, their benefits. I hope the strike doesn't go on too long, but there is always that possibility of someone else coming in and taking their spot.
Yeah, I agree. Joseph, any final comments?
I think it's that like moral idea. Like, how would we feel if, I'm gonna go sports, like if we had like a professional robot that could destroy everybody? Like, I'm not saying like, but people would be upset with that, and you'd have to create like your own league of only robots playing robots, and so it just creates that field of like, we want human talent to be represented, and I think there's that humans, we may not do the best at it all the time, but we like unite together and want to support one another. Yeah. And I think this is a situation where like we need to show that, and you're like, no, I want to support humanity and support who we are and stuff. And so it's not that we're saying right now these stories that may be being written by AI are that good, but there might be a possibility where they are, and I don't want us to like be okay with, let's watch, all these shows that are only written by computers and stuff like that. I think we need to support humanity in another way, and that's, just simply let go of it and let go of ChatGPT and do your own thought. Think for yourself.
Think for yourself. No, I think you're right. Well, thank you for having this conversation with me, guys. I think that, this is something that we all need to stay aware of, obviously. Like, there's a lot of great writers out there, a lot of great content that's being created, daily. And so, so we're Brothers of the Half Circle. This is our podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed listening to us. Once again, shout out to Sharpened Iron Studios for letting us use this space. We really do appreciate it. Again, we encourage you to reach out to them. If you are a content creator, please reach out to them. You can rent equipment. All of that information will be found in the description of this video and of this podcast episode. You can also listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Podbean. I didn't know we were on there, but we are on there. So if you want to listen to us, please search Brothers of the Half Circle, and we would love for you to join the conversation. I'm Sean. That's Christian. That's Joseph. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
See you.